Bond parameters. Bond parameters. What exactly do you mean by bond parameters? See, in chemical bonding chapter, you will come across certain terms like what is bond length, what is bond order, what is bond enthalpy, and finally, what is bond angle. So we need to understand these terms like bond length, bond order, bond enthalpy, and bond angle. So these are referred to as altogether the bond parameters, with the help of which we can understand various important aspects regarding the bonds. So to talk about, we'll first talk about what exactly is bond length. Bond length mane ki. So we know that whenever two atoms combine, say with the help of any chemical bond, so when we talk about two atoms of different nature, then the distance between the nuclei of the two atoms, okay, the distance between the nuclei of the two atoms is referred to as the bond length. Obviously, the atoms will be more stable at a particular distance from each other, and that particular distance at which they are stable with respect to each other will be called as equilibrium distance. At equilibrium distance, whatever is the distance between the nuclei of the two bonded atoms, it is called bond length. So we can say that from this distance to this distance, it is radius of, say, atom A. And from this distance to this distance, we have radius of atom B. So we can say that if we add up the two radii RA plus RB, so that is going to give us what is called as bond length. So bond length is the distance between the nuclei of two bonded atoms, and it is also referred to as the internuclear distance between the two atoms. What is the meaning of internuclear distance? It is the distance between the nuclei of two atoms. So let us try to write down the definition of bond length. The equilibrium distance between the nuclei of two bonded atoms in a molecule is called its bond length. The equilibrium distance between the nuclei of two bonded atoms in a molecule is called its bond length. And how it is measured, with the help of what technique the bond length is measured? So we have various techniques. It is measured with the help of spectroscopy. It is a separate branch of chemistry, spectroscopy. X-ray diffraction, electron diffraction. So these are the methods. You simply need to understand that the methods with the help of which we can measure the bond length are spectroscopy, X-ray diffraction, electron diffraction. So in general, the bond length is generally expressed in the units of bond length is measured in terms of very small distances, picometers, angstrom, and nanometers. Can anyone tell me what is the relation between picometer and meter? 1 picometer is how many meters? Can you recall? Do you know anyone? Yes. 1 picometer is 10 to the power minus 12 meters. How much is 1 angstrom?
10 to the power minus 10 meter.
10 to the power minus 10 meters. And how much is 1 nanometer? 10 to the power minus 9 meters. So you can imagine that the distance between the nuclei of the two atoms is so small that it is measured in terms of picometers, nanometers, and angstrom. Now, if the bonding between the two atoms is covalent bond, in a covalent bond, the covalent radius is defined as half the internuclear distance between two similar atoms covalently bonded to each other. So this we have learned while discussing the periodic classification. And we have seen that if both the atoms are similar and they are covalently bonded to each other, then half the internuclear distance, that is half the bond length, is referred to as covalent radius. So hence we can say that if we want to express the bond length in terms of covalent radius, so it will be twice of the covalent radius. So we can take the twice only when both the atoms are similar. But if the atoms are different, then we have to separately add up the two radii. So it is like saying that if the two atoms combining are different from each other, just now as I have shown you, one is smaller, one is larger atom. So both of them have different radii. So bond length will be sum of the two radii, Ra plus Rb. But if both the atoms are similar, then both of them will have same radii. So in that case, bond length will be twice of R. See whether this point is clear to all of you or not. If this is atom A, this is atom B, then bond length will be sum of the two radii. And if both atoms are similar, then both of them will have same radius. So you need to simply double it up to get the bond length. Clear? Yes, any doubt? Please tell me up to this much.
Sir, what is equilibrium distance?
Equilibrium distance means, see, when the atoms approach each other, it has been found out that at a particular distance, the atoms are more comfortable with each other. If they go beyond that distance, then also they are less stable. If they go far away from that distance, that also will make them uneasy. So at a particular distance, when they make the most stable system, so that distance is called equilibrium distance. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So that means when the two atoms are approaching each other, when they become too close, then there will be nucleus-nucleus repulsion, which will make them unstable. And when they are too far away, so there will be very less attractive force between them. Then also they are less stable. So only at a particular distance, when they are forming the most stable molecule, the distance will be called as equilibrium distance.
Okay,
Any other
sir.
doubt? Any other question?
No, sir.
Okay. Now let us see that what are the factors that affect the bond length. What are the factors that affect the bond length? Bond length of key factor affect করে. The various factors that affect the bond length are first one is size of the atom. When two atoms which are combining with each other are smaller in size, so obviously the bond length will be smaller because the distance between the nucleus is small. But at the same time, if the two combining atoms are large in size, then automatically the distance between the nucleus will increase or not. So hence bond length will increase with the increase in the atomic size which are involved in the bond formation. Now, if we talk about H bond F, H bond Cl, H bond Br, and H bond I, all are halogens on one side, and all of them are bonded to hydrogen. Now tell me, in all these molecules, who do you think will have the longest bond length?
Sir, HCl.
H bond.
Cl.
Why? Who is the
Sir,
largest halogen out of all the four? Fluorine, chlorine, bromine, or iodine?
sir, iodine.
Iodine. So as we are moving down the group, the atomic size increases. So if atomic size increases, so who do you think will have the largest bond length? Is it HCl or HI?
HI.
HI. Okay. So write down the bond length increases with increase in the size of the atom. Thus, among different halogen acids, all these are called halogen acids. Bond length increases in the order H bond F is smallest, followed by H bond Cl, followed by H bond Br, followed by H bond F. The bond length will keep on increasing with increase in the atomic size of the atoms. Similarly, if there is a bonding between carbon and carbon, it will be smaller than silicon bond silicon, which will be smaller than germanium bond germanium. Why? Because they all belong to the same group, carbon, silicon, and germanium. And as we are moving down the group, what happens to the atomic size? It increases down the group. So therefore, bond length increases with increase in the size of the atom. Is it understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Megha, clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when we go down any group, the atomic size keeps on increasing, as we have discussed in periodic properties of elements chapter, because number of shells are increasing. So obviously, as the size will increase, the bond length will increase, because bond length depends upon the distance between the two nuclei. Can I proceed? Have you written it down?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The second factor on which the bond length depends upon is called bond multiplicity. So what do you mean by the term bond multiplicity? So bond multiplicity stands for the number of bonds present in between the two atoms. Suppose we have carbon single bond carbon, carbon double bond carbon, and carbon triple bond carbon. So we can see that the multiplicity is increasing from carbon single bond carbon to carbon triple bond carbon. Now, what is the effect of bond multiplicity on bond length? So always remember that more the number of bonds which are present between the atoms, more closer the atoms will be, because that will strengthen the bond, that will make the bond much stronger. So hence we can say that as the number of bonds increases between two atoms, so obviously the bond length will decrease, which means that bond length and bond multiplicity are inversely proportional to each other. The bond length decreases with increase in the number of bonds present between the atoms. And this number of bonds present between the atoms is actually referred to as bond multiplicity. So who do you think out of carbon single bond carbon, carbon double bond carbon, and carbon triple bond carbon will be smallest in size?
Carbon, triple bond carbon.
Thus, the bond length decreases in the order carbon triple bond carbon smaller than carbon double bond carbon smaller than carbon single bond carbon. Is it clear?
Sir, can you spotlight the screen?
Yes, it is understood or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are the two factors on which the bond length depends upon. So as the atomic size increases, bond length will increase, and as the number of bonds increases, bond length will decrease. So thus we can say that bond length is directly proportional to atomic radius. More the atomic radius, more will be the bond length, but inversely proportional to bond order. What do you mean by bond order? The multiplicity of the bonds, number of bonds present between the two atoms. That is called bond order. Clear? Can I proceed further?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All of you have written down?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So after this, we go to the second parameter. Bond angle. Bond angle. So you all are familiar with the fact that an angle is formed when two rays connect each other through a single point. And this is how the angle is measured. So in the same way, when bonding is formed between more than two atoms, so they will acquire some angle. Okay, so that particular angle is referred to as the bond angle. And remember always that it is the bonding electron pairs that are responsible in calculation of bond angle. Lone pairs do not determine the bond angle. Though lone pairs are responsible to assign that how much of bond angle will be formed. Okay, but while measuring the bond angle, we are not taking the help of the lone pairs. We take the help of bond pairs only. So let us try to understand that what exactly is the definition of bond angle. The angle between the orbitals, containing bonding electrons. Bonding electron pairs around central atom in a molecule. It is expressed in degrees. Whereas previously the bond length was expressed in picometer, nanometer or angstrom, but bond angle will be measured in degrees. So degrees hote ami paisu in mathematics that whenever we are expressing the bond angles, so we are always expressing them in terms of degrees. It is also experimentally determined by spectroscopy. So spectroscopy is a very important branch of chemistry. So if you study chemistry as the major subject in higher studies, you will get to know that what exactly is spectroscopy. So the bond angle gives some idea about how the orbitals around the central atom in a molecule are distributed, and it also helps us to determine the shape of the molecule. Okay, so suppose we have methane. So it has been found out that methane has a tetrahedral shape with 4 bond pairs surrounding the carbon. The carbon is surrounded by 4 hydrogen atoms, and these hydrogen atoms arrange themselves so as to get a tetrahedral shape, because out of all the geometrical shapes, the tetrahedral shape will be the most comfortable shape, and the bond angle has been found to be 109 degree 28 minutes. So no matter whether we measure this or this or this, all bond angles are found to be equal, and methane has bond angle of 109 degree 28 minutes. Ammonia. Ammonia also has got 4 pairs, but out of the 4 pairs, 1 of them is lone pair and 3 of them are bonded pairs. So here when we are asked to calculate the bond angle, so we need to calculate this angle or this angle, which is found to be 107 degrees. So we'll discuss later on. There is another very important theory called VSEPR theory that we will get in next class, that the presence of lone pair tries to decrease the bond angle. So in the first molecule, methane had 4 pairs around the carbon. Nitrogen also has 4 pairs around the nitrogen, but due to the difference in the nature of the pairs, here all of them are bond pairs. Electrons are involved in bonding. Here 3 of them are bond pairs and 1 of them is lone pair. So due to the presence of lone pair, the bond angle has been found to be decreased. When we talk about water, so in water, the oxygen is also surrounded by 4 pairs, but again the nature has changed. Now there are 2 lone pairs and 2 bond pairs. So accordingly, the bond angle further decreases and it is found to be 104.5 degrees. So I have specifically given this example because what is common in all these 3 molecules is the number of pairs. But what is different in the 3 molecules is the nature of pairs. Whereas in methane, all are bonded pairs. In ammonia, 3 are bonded pairs, 1 is lone pair, and in water, 2 are lone pairs, 2 are bonded pairs. So while calculating the bond angle, we are not taking the help of lone pairs, but at the same time, the lone pairs are responsible in determining the bond angle. As the lone pairs are increasing, the bond angle is decreasing. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So again, I am asking to all of you, what is the common thing between all the 3 molecules? The central atom is surrounded by how many pairs? Yes, it is surrounded by how many pairs of electrons?
4.
4.
4.
Because when I write the Lewis dot structure of methane, it is somewhat like this. So is it not surrounded by, the carbon is surrounded by 4 pairs? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
When I draw the Lewis dot structure of ammonia, the nitrogen is also surrounded by 4 pairs. But what is the difference? Are all the 4 pairs bonded pairs?
No, sir.
How many of them are bonded pairs?
3.
3 of them.
3 of them are bonded pairs and 1 of them is lone pair. In case of water, 2 are bonded pairs and 2 are lone pairs or not? Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So as the lone pair is increasing, we are going to get the effect on the bond angle value. So with increase in lone pair, what is happening to the bond angle? Is it increasing or decreasing?
Decreasing, sir.
It is decreasing. So more the number of lone pairs, smaller is the bond angle. Understood? Any doubt up to this much? You can clear it out by asking. No doubt. Can I proceed further?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So after the second bond parameter, we now talk about the third one, right? Bond enthalpy. Enthalpy is another term for energy. So first you try to understand what exactly is bond enthalpy, and then I'll make you write regarding the bond enthalpy. See, suppose we have got hydrogen molecule and you want to break down this bond so that they are again converted back to hydrogen atoms. So if you want to break down something, you need to supply energy. So how much energy is required to break down 1 mole? When I say 1 mole, it's not a single H bond H we are interested to break down. We are interested to break down how many such bonds? 6.022 into 10 to the power 23. Because breaking 1 such bond will require very small amount of energy. And therefore, we always talk about in terms of Avogadro's number, 1 mole or 6.022 into 10 to the power 23. So it has been calculated that to break down 1 mole of any kind of the same type of bond, whatever energy is required, that is referred to as the bond enthalpy. So for hydrogen molecule, you need to supply 435.8 kilojoules of energy. This energy is required to break a single bond or 1 mole of bond. Again, I'm asking. Yes,
1 mole.
1 mole. And when we talk about 1 mole of bond, how many bonds are required to be broken down?
6.022 into 10 to the power 23.
Never get this number.
6.022 into 10 to the power 23. And larger the energy required, what can you say about the bond? The bond is strong or the bond is weak?
Strong.
Strong. Because the more you require energy, it means that you need to break down stronger bonds. So by making use of the bond enthalpy values, one can also make out the strength of the bond. Greater the strength of the bond, more will be the bond enthalpy. So hence we can define it is the amount of energy required to break 1 mole of bonds of a particular type between 2 atoms in gaseous state. So if you want to break down 1 mole of a bond so that it is converted to their respective gaseous atoms, then whatever the amount of energy is required, it is called the bond enthalpy. Now, bond enthalpy is also sometimes called bond dissociation enthalpy because you are dissociating the molecule into atoms, and that is why it is also called bond dissociation enthalpy. But there is a case under it, so we need to understand it. In case of diatomic molecules, such as H2, N2, O2, HCl, etc. What is the meaning of the term diatomic molecule? Yes. Diatomic
So two
molecules mane
atoms.
ki? The molecules containing 2 atoms. The bond enthalpy is also called bond dissociation enthalpy. Also called bond dissociation enthalpy. So the example that I have given you is of a diatomic molecule, and therefore the 435.8 kilojoules per mole of energy can be also called as bond dissociation energy. But what happens when we are talking about polyatomic molecules? Polyatomic molecules means what? The atoms, the molecules which contain more than 2 atoms in them, 3, 4, 5, whatever number of atoms. So in that case, the bond enthalpy and bond dissociation enthalpy are not same. Why is it so? And in those cases, what will happen? Let us see. Have you written down this much?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now here, let us say that we consider methane. Suppose we take the case of methane. Methane has got 4 carbon hydrogen bonds. And to break each type of bond, you need to supply different amount of energy. You might ask me, why is it so? All are carbon hydrogen bonds. Then why do they require different amount of energies to be broken down? But when you are breaking the first bond, the other 3 bonds are there. So obviously they will have some impact on the breaking process, and therefore energy required will be something else. Let us say that bond dissociation enthalpy is A. For this one it is B, this one is C, and this one it's D. Because one after another, you are breaking the bonds. You are not breaking down all the bonds at a time. You are breaking the bonds one after another. And accordingly, every bond will have a different bond dissociation enthalpy. But what will be the bond enthalpy in such case? The bond enthalpy in such cases will be average of the bond dissociation enthalpies. That means every bond requires a different amount of energy to be broken down. We will add up to give the total amount of energy which is required to break all the bonds. And we will divide it by 4. And thus we can say for polyatomic molecules, containing same type of atom surrounding the central atom, bond enthalpy is the average of bond dissociation enthalpies. Now, if it is asked that are bond enthalpies and bond dissociation enthalpies always the same? The answer to this question will be they are same if the molecule is diatomic, because for diatomic there is only one type of bond to be broken down, and average of a single value is the value itself. But when you talk about polyatomic molecules, so of course, to break down each and every bond, the amount of energy is required will be different, and we need to take the average of all these values to get the bond enthalpy. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So bond enthalpy and bond dissociation enthalpies are not always the same. It is same only if a molecule is diatomic. But for polyatomic molecules, they have a different values. Clear? Written down up to this much?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now say for example, you have a molecule of water. So as you can see, same type of atom is surrounding oxygen. So what do you think? The bond enthalpy and bond dissociation enthalpies will be same or different?
Different.
It will be different. Because to break this bond, you require different amount of energy. To break this bond, you require different amount of energy. So what will be the bond enthalpy? Will it not be A plus B divided by 2? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So previously we divided by 4. Why? Because there were 4 bonds. Now we are dividing it by 2 because there are only 2 bonds. Understood? Is it clear to everyone? Difference between bond dissociation enthalpy and bond enthalpy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So then we talk about factors affecting bond enthalpy. What are the factors that affect the bond enthalpy? Let us try to understand. Number 1, size of the atoms. So if the 2 atoms combining are small, we have already learned bond length is small. But if 2 atoms combining are large, bond length is large. Where do you think you need to supply greater amount of energy to break the bond?
Smaller.
The smaller one,
Smaller.
because the smaller bonds are stronger bonds, isn't it? So hence we can say greater the size of the atoms, larger is the bond length, and hence lesser is the bond dissociation energy. I hope it is clear.
Yes, sir. Clear.
No. The second factor which affects the bond enthalpy is bond multiplicity, which is of course number of bonds present in a molecule in between the 2 atoms. Say, I take the example of hydrogen single bond hydrogen, oxygen double bond oxygen, nitrogen triple bond nitrogen. You are given the task of breaking the bonds present in between the 2 atoms. So where do you think out of the 3 molecules you need to supply greatest amount of energy?
Nitrogen.
Nitrogen. Of course, nitrogen. Why? Because number of bonds to be broken are more. And because number of bonds to be broken are more, so you need to supply greater amount of energy. And that is why we can say that bond dissociation energy increases with increase in the number of bonds present between the molecules. Okay, just hold on, I'm coming. Yes, clear? Can I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Thus, you can write bond dissociation energy increases as H single bond H less than O double bond O less than N triple bond N. So more the number of bonds present between the two molecules, present between the two atoms, you need to supply greater amount of energy. Okay, can I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is the fourth bond parameter remaining to be discussed?
Bond angle.
Bond order. So as such, we have already discussed and come across the term bond order, which is also called, what is the another term for bond order? From today's discussion, what can you make out? Yes? Can you tell me? What is the another term for bond order? It is multiplicity of bond, isn't it? That means the number of bonds which are present in between two combining atoms. The number of bonds formed between the two atoms of a molecule is called the bond order. Say, for example, if you have a molecule and this is bond order. What is bond order of H bond H? Tell me. Yes. What is the bond
Sir,
order of
one.
H bond? 1. Because there is a single bond in between the two hydrogen atoms. O double bond O.
Sir, 2.
N triple bond N. 3. So it is not necessary that bond order should always be a whole number, because last class we discussed about resonance, where we saw that the molecules or ions which are showing resonance sometimes have a bond order which is sometimes fractional, like ozone. So in ozone, the bond order was coming in between a double bond and a single bond. Gotike, in such cases, the bond order is considered to be 1.5. And again, to repeat it, how to calculate the bond order for resonating structures. Let me show you. Ozone has two Lewis dot structures. One was this, and the other was this. So in such cases, if you are assigned to find out the bond order, how you are going to calculate the bond order? Take any one particular bond. What is the bond order of these two oxygen atoms in the first structure? Tell me. What is the bond order?
Sir, 1.5.
No, no, no.
One.
I'm talking about this structure only. What is the bond order of this? Is it not 2?
Yes, sir, 2.
2. And what is the bond order of the same bond in the second structure?
1.
So
One.
1. So when you take the average of the two, it will come out to be how much? 1.5, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
The bond order can be fractional also. In general, bond order is a whole number, but the molecules which are showing resonance, you can expect the bond order to be fractional also. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Can you help me out to calculate the bond order of C bond O in carbonate ion? I am drawing the resonating structures of carbonate ion. How many structures are possible for carbonate ion? 3 structures. So tell me, what will be the bond order of carbon bond oxygen in carbonate ion?
1.33.
1.33. How have you calculated? Can you describe it?
So 2 plus 1 plus 1 divided by 3.
So you take any bond, not necessarily only this you will take. You can take any one of them. So suppose I take this bond. So accordingly, the bond order will be 2. And for same bond, here the bond order is 1. For same bond, it is 1. So total of 3 structures are there. So it will be 4 by 3, which will come out to be 1.3. Clear or not?
Yes, sir.
So this is how bond order for resonating structures is calculated. Buji Paisa, is it understood to all?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So these are the different bond parameters of a chemical bond. So if you come across these terms, the thing should be crystal clear to you, because these concepts are required to understand the different chapters starting from 11 as well as class 12. So after discussion of the bond order, bond length, bond angle, and what was the fourth one? Bond dissociation energy, bond enthalpy. We go to another very important topic, right? Covalent character. In ionic bond. Covalent character in ionic bond. Now it is quite surprising that we are talking about something in another thing which is completely different from each other. We classify the chemical bond mainly into 2 types, ionic bond and covalent bond. And we think that they are completely separate from each other. But actually they are not. It is just like saying that when we talk about 2 common genders, so we have male and we have female. But you must have noticed that some males are there who have some female characteristic in them. Similarly, there are some females who have male characteristic in them. If you carefully observe the sportswomen, You will see that they have some male character, but that does not turn them male. They have some male character. Similarly, there are some males who have some female character. So exactly in the similar way, we can say that a covalent molecule may have some ionic character, and ionic molecules or ionic bonds may have some covalent character. So when you are to compare that which particular ionic bond has more covalent character or less covalent character, so we have to follow a particular rule which is referred to as Fajans rule. Remember, it's a very, very important rule, Fajans rule. So Fajans rule helps us to understand covalent character in ionic bonds. Now, before we start writing the points, we will have to understand certain things. That an ionic bond is formed between a cation and an anion. Let us say the cation is represented by A plus, anion is represented by B minus. So in general, the cations are smaller in size. So let us say this is the cation and anions are in general larger in size. So this is the anion. So these are the electron clouds of cations and anions. Both have been drawn. So when a cation approaches the anion, before their approach, when they are far away from each other, the electron cloud in both of them were symmetrical. And you know what is symmetrical? It was purely spherical. But when the cation approaches the anion, it is found that the cation starts distorting the size of the electron cloud of the anion, because the cationic nucleus starts attracting the electron of the anion. So previously it was spherical. No longer it is spherical. As you can see, a part of the electron cloud is attracted by the anion. And this particular phenomenon is referred to as polarization. Polarization. Who is responsible for doing the polarization?
Cation.
Cation. So we say that cation polarizes and anion gets polarized. Understood? Any doubt up to this much? You must understand each and every point stepwise, then only you can understand the whole rule. Up to this much, is it clear?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
Tell me.
sir, why cations are smaller than anions?
Cations are losing their electrons, so they have lesser electronic cloud, and anions gain electrons, so they have larger electronic cloud, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So Fajan says, greater the polarization, more covalent is the character. Greater the polarization, more covalent is the character. So the question arises that when we talk about the process of polarization, so when is the polarization more and when is the polarization less? So let us again come back to the original condition. When we talk about the cation, smaller the size of the cation, more will be its nuclear charge, isn't it? because it is the nucleus which is responsible for attracting these electrons. So if the size of this cation is small, then attraction will be more or not? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Because if the size of the cation also would have been larger, then the nucleus would have been more busy to attract its own electron. Forget about attracting somebody else's electron. So because the cation is smaller, its nuclear charge is high, and therefore it is not only satisfied with its own electron, and that is why it starts attracting the electrons of others. Now, those who are thieves and dacoits, so why do you think they do such kind of act? Because the main reason is most of them are very poor. If they would have been satisfied by their income, then they would never go to steal, or they would never have gone to dacoity. So here, because it is smaller in size, so its own electron is not sufficient for it, and therefore the nucleus attracts the electron of the anion. So hence we can say that smaller the size of cation, number two, what should be the size of anion? Should it be large or should it be small in order to have greater polarization? Tell me.
Large.
It should be large. Why it should be large? Because if anion is small, then obviously the electrons will be more under its own nucleus's control. But because the electron cloud is large, so therefore it easily gets attracted by the nucleus of the other, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So larger the size of anion, and number three, greater the magnitude of charge on cation. So cation should have high nuclear charge, because when the cation will have high nuclear charge, it is going to attract the electron of the anion more. So smaller the size of the cation, larger the size of the anion, and more is the magnitude of the positive charge on the cation, greater will be the polarization. And just now, as I said, greater the polarization, more covalent is the character. So hence, we will have to take care of these three simple rules, which helps us to understand the covalent character in an ionic bond. So three simple rules which says size of the cation should be small, size of the anion should be large, and magnitude of charge on the cation should be large, so as to have more polarization, which makes it more covalent. Now, keeping in mind this particular fact, whatever we have discussed so far, suppose you are given compounds like sodium fluoride, sodium chloride, sodium bromide, and sodium iodide. All of them are ionic compounds because they are, the bond is formed between group 1 element and group 17 element. But out of all of them, if it is asked that who do you think has greater covalent character, so we need to follow the Huggins rule. Now tell me here, in all these compounds, who is the common ion?
Sodium.
Sodium. So
Sodium.
the ion which is common, that is of no use to us. The ions which are different are important to us. That means the anions are different or not?
Yes,
In the
sir.
first one, the anion is F minus. In the second one, the anion is Cl minus. In the third one, it is Br minus. In the fourth one, it is I minus. Now, apply the Fajans rule and tell me, out of the four, who do you think has highest covalent character?
Sir,
Sodium
NaI.
iodide.
Sodium iodide. Why sodium iodide? Because just now, according to rule 2, we have discussed that larger the size of anion, more covalent is the character. And therefore, we can say that as we move from left to right, covalent character increases. So let us put it as number 1, covalent character increases. Understood or not? Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
And if covalent character increases, ionic character decreases, because covalent character is just inversely proportional to each other. Covalent character and ionic character are inversely proportional to each other. So out of all of them, no doubt, all are ionic, but who is most ionic?
Sodium fluoride.
Sodium fluoride. And who is most covalent?
Sodium
Sodium.
iodide.
Sodium
Iodide.
iodide. Yes. Okay. Now let us move on to next one. LiCl, NaCl, KCl, CSCl. Who is common in all of them? Cation or anion?
Anion.
Cation.
Anion.
Anion.
Who is common? Common is anion. All are Cl minus, isn't it? Cations are different. So on the basis of cations, we are going to decide that who is more covalent and who is more ionic. So who do you think, after applying the Fajans rule, is most covalent?
Sir, lithium chloride.
Very good. Why do you say so?
Sir, because its electron count is the smallest.
Yes, because lithium cation is smallest. And according to Fajans rule number 1, smaller the size of the cation, more polarizing it is. More polarizing it is, that means greater is the polarization of electron cloud going on, and more is the covalent character. So accordingly, lithium chloride is most covalent. So what should I write here? Covalent character
Decreases.
decreases. And ionic character increases. So who is most ionic out of all of them?
CSCl.
Cesium chloride.
Cesium chloride. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Now come to the third example. Sodium chloride, magnesium chloride, aluminum chloride. In all of them, who is common?
Anion.
Anions are
Anion.
common. Cations are not only different, but they have different charges as well, isn't it? What is the charge on sodium? +1. What is the charge on magnesium? +2. What is the charge on aluminium? +3. Now apply the third rule of Fajan and tell me, out of the three, who do you think is most covalent?
Aluminum chloride.
Aluminum chloride.
AlCl3 is most covalent. So covalent character, what should I write?
Increases.
From left to right?
Yes.
Increases. Covalent character increases. And who do you think is most ionic?
NaCl.
So ionic character decreases, isn't it? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, is it clear to each and everyone?
Yes, sir.
Fajan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Fajan's rule of polarizability helps us to understand the covalent character in ionic bond. So simply follow the three rules. Smaller the size of cation, greater the size of anion, and larger the magnitude of charge on the cation, more is the covalent character and lesser is the ionic character. And with the help of this, we can compare the covalent and ionic character in different molecules. Hope it is clear to everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, fine. So we end up the class today here, and the next day we'll further talk about one of the most important topics, that is VSEPR theory. So whatever be the mode I will be taking, you be present in the class and don't miss this particular topic. Okay, so that will be VSEPR theory. Thank you. Good night, all of you. Take care and be safe.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.